We're continuing on Shulchan Aruch Arachaim, Hilchot Shabbat, and we're up to Siman Shin Aleph, Seif Yud Bet. Maran writes, Lo yatzeh hayat b'machat atchuva lo bebigdo. A tailor should not walk out in the Shut Harabim with needles that are sewing needles that they would put in order to keep them safe and also not lose them. They would pin them to themselves, to their clothing. And the chayat, a seamstress or a tailor, would be accustomed to go out like that. That would be a norm of carrying your machat, your thread or the needle for a chayat, and therefore that would be considered the norm of carrying, which would be asur on a deoraita level for them on Shabbat. And same would be with a nagar beketzam shebeozno. A carpenter would have something carrying. Nowadays, you have like they have the pencil behind their ear. That's how they carry it. That's because they usually have to constantly be using to mark things and so on. So ksorek b'mishicha shebesavaro. Same is with all the businesses, all of the professions. When they have a certain thing that they keep on themselves because they have to constantly be using it, that would be considered a normal way of carrying it in Seif Yud Gimel. Maran writes also same tone of a halacha lo yetzeh azav bekis sheoseh la'atzilo mizivato. People who need to have, for instance, nowadays would be a catheter, having attached to them things to keep their garments clean from the emissions, the bodily emissions that they would have. Same would be for a woman experiencing her cycle. That back in the day they had what would be equivalent of a pad or a liner. Now we have to talk about the modern applications of this nowadays. There will be asur for them to go out in the Shut Harabim unless they are made professionally for them to be considered like a extension of their garments. But if you are wearing it in order to prevent pain, not just because you want to keep your outer garments clean, but you are doing it because it prevents you from pain, then it will be completely different. It would be mutar to go out with that, which would be again, the reason behind the kavanah is because sa'ar, not because just your garments are going to be clean. Even though that it has a fringe benefit that you also will save yourself from stains and dirtying your garments, it still will be derech malbush. It still is considered the way people go out and the normal way of clothing, and that would be mutar. Now, later on, we will discuss this in Siman Shin Gimel, Seif Tetvav, that a woman is mutar to go out with a moch, with a what would be the equivalent of a ketampan, a type of thing that would be in order to absorb the dam nida, would be mutar for her to go out, and Chazal did not require her to actually have it tied or part of the garments, and that's because the cloth that would be designated for this would be tightly fit and it would stay there without even kshira, and that would be the reason for the heter, which again we're discussing it. It just needs to be contrasted with our siman over here in Shin Aleph. Now the other lady products that are available for, let's say, a person experiencing nida, which would be like pads and the panty liners. So that would be also part of this discussion if it's considered attached to the garment, the ones who stick to the undergarment. That would be also like the beged itself, basically, and a person could be mekel, lenient to go out with it, like Dr. Avraham, Sofer Abraham, in his Nishmat Avraham, he writes this in the name of Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach and others. And the reason being that it's considered malbush. Now, the Rabbi Mazuz in the Ha'arot of Ish Matzliach, his Talmidim, Rabbi Moshe Levi, and his students, they write in their Mishna Berura that Rabbi Mazuz was medayek from here, that you see from this Mishna Berura that a person that has to wear a bag because they can't control their urination, so that, whether it is catheter or any other way that would be made possible for them to urinate. He writes Meir Mazuz that if a person has Sar Gadol, it says there's not a bigger embarrassment than Sar, that a person is going to have all their garments wet and smelly, and so on. Therefore, it says is mutar, because that is also considered Sar. So it's not just a blood for a nida, but also any individual that can't control the muscles of the shetin. Again, they're without getting into the complexities, there are two sets of muscles. One, the one is more automatic, and the other one is more in person's control. And sometimes, whether because of age or sickness, that becomes less controlled, and people could either leak or completely be not in control of their urination, and that becomes something that Ramir Mazur says you could definitely carry that bag with you. Because it's considered the same equivalent of the beged of Nida that the Shulchan Aruch discusses over here. But again, you can't judge from this any other scenario that it seemed like a Sara Guf. You have to discuss it with a proper, competent Morah. There are many different nuances that could make a difference in what the outcome of the halakha could be, and therefore a person should discuss it with the Rav. Now, Shulchan Aruch writes in Seif Yudalet, davar shu derech malbush. If something is made as part of your garments, afilu im eno lofsho ela mishum atzul letinuf, even if you don't wear it for malbush, you're just trying to protect yourself from getting dirty, right? That's the only reason you're wearing it. But it is made as a malbush, as a garment, as a clothing, an article of clothing. Says the Shulchan Aruch, mutar latzet po b'Shabbat. It's mutar to wear it and go out on Shabbat. And the Ramah says, therefore, mutar lilbosh beged mipenei gshamim. If you have a raincoat, which the only purpose doesn't look beautiful necessarily, it's the only reason that the person would wear it is because they want to keep their garments dry under the rain, that would be mutar. Or kova al rosho, you want to put a hat to keep yourself dry from the rain, like a built-in umbrella type of thing. You have some people have a rain hat, and so old hat, and they wear it only because they want to get to the shul dry and not with a wet head. So that would be also mutar. Aval asur leisha liten beged al seifa. But if a woman wants to put a garment on top of her head covering because of the rain, that would be a problem, because that's not derech malbush. It's not a raincoat. You're just putting a piece of plastic on your head. That would not be necessarily derech malbush. This actually becomes a question. Some of the nowadays there is something called a sheina coat. In the East Coast is very prevalent over here as well, that under rain or snow, where you wear it, it covers the body and covers your hat or shtreimel as well. Alternatively, people will take like a shopping bag and wrap it around their hat, their Shabbat hat, and put it on. Now that is not so simple if it's considered carrying that thing on Shabbat will be equivalent pashtut of this Ramah speaking about a woman putting a piece of cloth or plastic on their head covering, which would be problematic. Now, the Maharashtam understands this Haggadah Mordechai a little bit differently, that the reason that for women is asur to go out in rain with a cover on top of their head covering, that their head covering should not get wet, is only for women, because if you stop the rain, they would right away take it off. Right, that would be the reality. It stops raining for a moment, they would take the cover off and they would carry it in their hand, right? Because they want people to see their beautiful head covering, or they're more sensitive to that. But for men, that not necessarily, they're not so careful in that. They're not trying to run a beauty contest. Keep it there. If it's on your head, you just walk with it until your destination. That would be more lenient, says the Maharsham, the Gdolei Poskim of the Achronim. But again, Rav Ovadia Yosef does not necessarily agree with the read of the Maharsham in the language of the Haggadah Mordechai, and he seems to indicate that for man and woman would be the same thing, perhaps, and there's no difference between them, and he writes that therefore you have to stick with the differentiation that the Bet Yosef has, if it's derech malbush or it's not derech malbush. So if you have something that is the way people cover themselves, that would be derech malbush, is mutar. If it's not derech malbush, it will be a problem. Hence the potential problem with this plastic bags that a person would cover themselves with, or any other plastic or material that person would just wrap around themselves in lieu of having other items to garments to wear against the rain or the snow, which would become a problem. Now again, this is something you should discuss. A person should discuss with the Rav, but that's the simple understanding of the halacha. Says the Shulchan Aruch, one more Seif we'll cover here, Seif Tetvav. A person who had an amputation and he needs, he has a fake foot that he wears to be able to look proper, to look normal. He can't go out on Shabbat with that kav. The Hainu, Sheosek Defus Shel Regel, the way they would have it in the olden days would be, they would make like a shoe type of shape with it looks like it's his foot is in there, and he carves in it enough that the head of its leg could fit inside there, and now it looks like a feet attached to the leg. But it's not for walking. He still needs, he can't walk on it, he still needs his crutches. The entire purpose is that he should not look like an amputated person. He wants to just look at one level up. He wants people to think that he is lame, he's limping, but not that he doesn't have a leg or a foot. Because it's considered not a need for his walking, it's just a design, it's just for looking pretty, that would be still asur. Nowadays, again, many of these prosthetics is very different nowadays. They actually are used for them to be able to stand on, to jump on, to walk with, to run with, and that becomes obviously part and parcel of the person and their operations. That will be obviously mutar. But if it's only made for the looks, basically, that they should look a little better, not like a person that's missing a leg, missing a foot, then on Shabbat becomes a little bit more questionable in that way, because we are concerned that it's going to fall off, or he's going to take it off because he's uncomfortable, because he doesn't need it really to walk with. He's ben kach or ben kach. In any case, he has to use his crutches, so he may come to carry it, and therefore we do not allow that, which brings us to Seif Tet Zayin, in Hashem, to be continued in the days to come. Chazak u'beruch.